Hi, I'm Dr. David Gersten. Today I'm going to be talking about ADHD, Attention Deficit Disorder with Hyperactivity. There's an important cause of ADHD that has nothing to do with medications or nutritional supplements. This issue has to do with the impact of digital media on the developing brain. Digital media includes television, tablets, computer monitors, the Apple Watch, smartphones, and video games. Excessive screen time leads to electronic screen syndrome, and there are studies that show that too much screen time doubles the incidence of ADHD. Electronic screen syndrome, which is caused by overstimulation and dysregulation of the nervous system, involves negative changes in mood, cognition, and behavior. Research indicates that excessive screen time is associated with language delays and impaired memory. These learning delays can begin before the age of 2, when children should be learning about communication by observing and emulating the facial expressions, body movements, and tone of voice the way human beings have learned for thousands of years. The ramifications of extended screen time are vast. When we are staring at a computer or video game screen, there is a lack of eye movement, lack of body movement, and lack of social interaction. Instead, there is a quick swipe that takes us to a new page and brings the reward of instant gratification through the immediate release of dopamine. Excessive screen time impairs the ability to focus, concentrate, pay attention, sense how others are feeling, and communicate with others. The rapid-fire changes on digital screens are much quicker than the visual changes of ordinary life without screens. With excessive screen time, children learn that all actions have an immediate effect and an immediate reward. That, however, is not how the real world works. Let's look at some of the data on extended screen time. Studies show that 92% of babies had used a mobile device before their first birthday. By age 2, nearly 35% of children have their own mobile device. By age 4, that number is 75%. 1/3 of teens send more than 100 texts per day. 71% of children have a TV or internet device in their room. About 50% of middle school and high school children say that they are addicted to their computers, to the internet, or to video games. The American Academy of Pediatrics is concerned about the damaging effects of screen time, and they recommend a maximum daily screen time of 2 hours. The average amount of screen time for middle school and high school students is 4.5 to 8 hours. We're facing a dilemma never before seen in the history of mankind. The amount of time kids spend in front of digital screens raises 3 main issues. 1. What healthy activities are being displaced by the hours of screen time? 2. What negative brain changes does excessive screen time cause? And 3. Internet addiction. Let's focus now on this last issue, internet addiction. Excessive screen time can lead to internet addiction. Internet addiction involves the release of a small amount of dopamine every time a person swipes to a new page, scans through Facebook posts, responds to email notifications, or flips from one internet page to another. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter involved in pleasure and reward, is released with every screen swipe and every quick switch to a new internet page. Every change in the computer environment causes a hit of dopamine. Novelty causes dopamine release, and speed of change causes dopamine release. Internet addiction causes a reduction in dopamine receptors, as well as decreased brain levels of dopamine. Addictions involve withdrawal symptoms. Imagine what would happen to a 3-year-old child or a 15-year-old child who has already spent thousands of hours in front of a screen. Imagine what would happen if you suddenly remove his or her smartphone or iPad. They will beg for you to return their various screens and will throw a fit. They're not just angry. Their brain is addicted to digital screens. According to numerous studies, the electronic screen syndrome is causing sleep deprivation, social isolation, behavior problems, attention problems, and a hyper-aroused nervous system. The more time children spend watching screens, the less time they spend gathering knowledge from experiences in the real world. Children with excessive screen time have significant challenges with social situations because they're having difficulty reading other people's reactions, recognizing emotions, or expressing their own emotions in an appropriate manner. Many parents use an iPad instead of a hug, verbal communication, or a pacifier. These devices are being used to keep loud, energetic kids under control, especially when out in public in stores and restaurants. Many parents use digital devices as a way to calm a crying baby or a child having a temper tantrum. I don't have any judgment about this. Parents are faced with a very difficult challenge for which they have not been prepared. Because of their reliance on these devices, children are not learning how to handle distress, hunger, pain, or boredom. The digital screen keeps the child occupied, but the price is that the normal experience of learning what it means to be a human being is being drastically altered. 62% of students born in 1994 or later check their digital devices more frequently than every 15 minutes, and a big part of that is checking email and new posts on social media. When we are focused on something and then quickly redirect our attention to check email, it takes 15 to 25 minutes before our brain fully returns to the activity it was engaged in before checking email or responding to a notification alert. Our brain is hardwired to respond to novel or sudden changes in the environment as a potential danger. Today's dangers are not cave bears, saber-toothed tigers, or other predators. The sudden beep or flashing light that tells you have mail taps into the primitive brain structures involved in fight-or-flight physiology. Obviously, this is going on in classrooms across America. That means that most children will have some difficulty returning to concentrate on the subject being taught. Kids with ADHD have their condition worsened by frequent detours into email. Studies have found that screen time for toddlers who are 12 to 36 months old is associated with increased aggression, disobeying rules, cheating, and stealing. Now let's look at the results of MRI and EEGs. Imaging studies like an MRI have found that internet and video game addiction can shrink the brain in several regions, including the prefrontal cortex, the insula, the amygdala, and the striatum. The brain's frontal lobe, especially the prefrontal cortex, is involved in a host of important functions. It's the area responsible for understanding social interactions, decision-making, empathy, planning, impulse control, attention span, concentration, prioritizing, and emotional control. The frontal lobe also helps us take in nonverbal cues while talking to others, and helps us learn how to read nonverbal signs such as facial expression, gestures, and tone of voice. Children with shrinkage of the prefrontal lobe, as seen on MRI studies, are more impulsive, moody, and distractible than children with normal brain scans. MRI studies also show loss of brain tissue in the striatum, which is involved in dopamine reward pathways, and screen time can cause damage to the insula brain area, which is involved in our ability to develop empathy for others. The size of brain changes caused by screen time is quite small, but significant. We don't have evidence yet that these changes in brain structure are permanent. Eeg Neurofeedback is a technology that measures a person's brain electrical activity and then trains an individual to increase or decrease certain brainwave patterns. The main brainwaves that neurofeedback utilizes are delta, theta, alpha, beta, and high beta. In ADHD, there tends to be too much theta activity and too little beta activity. Theta brainwaves, which are slow waves with high amplitude, are associated with deep meditation, relaxation, and a hypnotic, dreamy state. Beta waves, which are faster waves with low amplitude, are associated with arousal and being focused. With EEG neurofeedback, a person with ADHD learns how to modify his or her brainwaves to improve focus by increasing beta wave activity, the fast waves, and by decreasing theta waves, the slow waves. In looking at ADHD, I think we need to consider that we have drifted quite far from our natural state. What's our natural state? Clean air and water, along with clean and nutrient-rich food. Tight-knit families and communities. Using food as our medicine, as Hippocrates recommended, and learning through real-world play. If a child plays with a real ball, he or she will use movement, grabbing, touching, or even trying to eat it. The child is experiencing the real world, and that can never be replaced by what is happening on a screen. Play which involves active imagination takes place in the real world. Excessive screen time is deleting playtime, which is a critical ingredient in children growing up happy, contented, and self-confident. Self-confidence comes from being active in the real world, trying things out, seeing what works and what doesn't work. Self-confidence comes when we are playing with our friends and occasionally run into conflict. When children flex the muscle of communicating about those conflicts and resolving them, they develop self-confidence, self-control, improved attention, and team skills. Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple computers, did not allow his own children to have a cell phone before age 14, and he prohibited the use of iPads, which he invented. Various studies confirm that psychiatric disorders, especially ADHD, are associated with too much screen time. The severity of ADHD symptoms is correlated with the amount of screen time. Is screen time the cause of ADHD? No. ADHD existed before computers and video games existed, but screen time is one very important cause of ADHD. In summary, for this section, computers, video games, and smartphones provide an immediate response to a child's interactions. That immediate response is mediated by a dopamine release. The child learns to prefer smartphones' immediate gratification. Real-world connection sadly becomes secondary to the quick fix. Staying connected to digital screens may mean that your child is becoming disconnected from being able to fully engage in life in the real world. At the most simplistic level, excessive screen time and internet addiction cause a reduction in dopamine receptors and a decrease in dopamine brain levels. Low dopamine brain levels is a theme that runs through most of the separate causes of ADHD. Thank you for listening. If you like this video, please select the like button below and subscribe. If you think this video would help a family member or friend who has a child with ADHD, please share. Thank you and have a great day.